Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're jumping on doing our Facebook Live, so I'm going to give everyone a chance to jump on here. But I'm excited. I'm excited. Got lots of stuff to cover today. And we're going to uncover, reveal, unpack the one thing. You guys have heard me talk a little bit about it. Let me just, hopefully it's working. Hey, D'Angelo, what's up, my friend? How are you? Oh, I got a bunch of people jumping on here live. Hello, hello, hello. Hope you guys are doing amazing. I'm excited. I'm excited. So today is going to be a really, really good session. What's up, Dolus? If you guys are on here live, just say hello. Tell me where you're calling in from. If you're what's up, Sandria? Whoa. Long time no speak, my friend. Just say hello, hello, where you're calling in from, and if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. So I want an honest answer from you guys on this one. Have you ever actually looked in the mirror since you've had your home care business and shined the light on reality and said, wow, is this it? Like, is this really what it's like having a home care business? Because truth of the matter is that I think mostly everyone on here has been in a position where we started this business because we like to serve, we like to help people. Like there's something intrinsically rewarding about this business. But if you've had, what's up, Ollie? All right, but if you've had this business for any amount of time and things for you feel a little bit overwhelming or stressful or like there's a lot of moving pieces, there is in this business. I know that's how it was for me, right? Have you guys ever been in that position where you're like, is this it? Is this as good as it gets? Because I started this business, guys, with this vision, right? I had this vision of a business where I can serve people and help people. And then I'd build this great team. We'd hire a lot of caregivers. Our clients would feel taken care of. And the business would run without me, and then I can start up other ventures that can serve people. And that was my vision, right? And pieces of that came true, right? Pieces of that came true, but for a long time, the truth is that I was in a state of overwhelm, constant chaos, my team coming to me, asking me questions. I'm getting sucked into the business. We'd get to a certain point, and then we'd hit like this ceiling, and then back down. Comment in the chat box if that has ever happened to you guys or if you can relate at all, because that was my world. It may not be your world, but that was totally my world. And reality is that there was truly one thing, right? And I talked about this. There's one thing that created this major shift in my business, right? This one thing that moved me from a place of being in constant chaos and worry to truly feeling like I had my finger on the pulse of the business. I knew what was going on. I got to a place where we had consistent flow of caregivers coming in. We had a consistent flow of cases coming in. And it wasn't always like that before. It was like chaos and out of control and little highs and lows and all the stuff in between. And I'm not here saying that you're never ever going to have a cycle or you're never ever going to have a period where you lose 3 big 24/7 cases in a row and you see a dip. That's happened to me multiple times. But the truth is that when I had this one thing in place, I had this sense of peace. Right? It was this sense of tranquility because I knew that I had something that would help me navigate the terrain, right? And I can solve my problems and I can solve them quickly and we can remove the bottlenecks and get to a place where my team, everyone on my team, they knew what they were supposed to be doing. They felt like they were part of a mission. Even my caregivers, they knew they were part of something bigger than just a job, all right? So when I was introduced to this one thing, and we're going to get into the one thing in a little bit, but when I was introduced to this, it changed the game, right? It was like a rhythm, a structure, a system, a process where I knew what was happening at any given time. And then based on this process, right? I wasn't focusing on 20, 30, 40, 50 different things. I was very clear in the direction that we were going. My team was clear in the direction that we were going. And then when things weren't going exactly how I wanted, because they're not always going to go exactly how you want them, right? There's Carol. Hello, Carol. Right? When they're not going exactly how you want them, you know which levers to pull. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with someone and in their business, they'll say, oh, recruiting's been a problem for me. And then 3, 4, 5 months later, I talk to them again and I'm like, okay, so like, what's going on? They're like, oh, we're still having troubles with recruiting. I'm like, okay, well, what area, what piece of it are you having difficulty with? And they're like, well, we're just not getting enough caregivers. I'm like, okay, but where inside of that and what have you done to fix it? And they're like, oh, well, we tried this and we tried this. And I'm like, okay, great. That's helpful. And that was kind of the world that I lived in, is where I would go to my franchise conference and I'd get a bunch of cool ideas, or I'd go attend a conference, or I'd go, get some trainings that people post online or whatever. And I'd get some really, really good ideas and I'd implement a piece here and a piece there, but it was chaotic. And what I mean by that, there wasn't a rhyme or reason. I just had 30 things at any given time that I wanted to do. I'm like, oh, that will help me. Oh, that will help me. Oh, that looks good. I'll try that. How many of you guys have done that? I call it throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall. How many of you guys are like that? You might be like that now. How many of you guys have at least 10 things that you want to do or improve inside of your home care business? Comment in the chat box if that's ever happened to you, right? How many of you guys have a bunch of things? You got the list of ideas and things that you want to implement inside your business. I know for me, it was like that all the time. Like I talked to one of my peers. I'm like, oh, I like that. Or I'd go see a post. I'm like, oh, I want to try that. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But the truth is that ultimately the goal is to really have a system and a process. And when I learned about this one thing from my mentor, and I started digging in, little by little, I was implementing. Now, the truth is that I implemented little pieces and I ended up hiring a consultant. It was like, they charged $5,000 a visit, right? So it cost me $15,000 with them. And at the time, it was a big check, right? It was a $15,000 check. And I wrote the check begrudgingly, but I shouldn't have done it begrudgingly, because the truth is that little by little, as the pieces got put into place, right, I didn't see the immediate impact. It was just like little by little, piece by piece, piece by piece. And then when I looked back, I'm like, holy cow, wow, look at all the things that have changed. Look at how I now have a system and a process. There's not chaos. And I've said this before, but it's true. Like there was a point where I took about 9 months off from the business. I had my third daughter, and I was like, cool, I am going to spend some more time with her. And I still participated in our weekly meetings, but because of the system, because of the structure, because of this one thing, I could confidently take time off without being afraid that things were going to fall apart, all right? Because I had the different pieces in place. Does that make sense? Comment in the chat box if that makes sense, because it's possible. I know it's possible. So if you're sitting here and you're like in a place where things feel overwhelming, I know what that feels like. But when you have a roadmap for how to integrate all the different moving parts, right? Because that's really what it is. There's a lot of different moving parts inside of the business, right? Innovation opportunities, look for the biggest win and success, right? And I'm not talking about like the day-to-day pieces of, okay, this is how we do scheduling. This is how we do recruiting, although those things matter, right? Those are what's called your SOPs, or standard operating procedures. Those things matter. Those things are important. If you have those things set up in your business, I highly encourage you to incorporate those. If you haven't, right, you can document your processes, because this way, let's say you have to hire a new person on your team, at least you have the processes documented. That's not what I'm talking about, though. Those things matter. I'm talking about the overarching management operating system of your business, right? what that is, for those of you that don't know exactly what it is, it's essentially it's how you make decisions inside of the business. It's the framework for how your organization operates. It's how you align your activities inside of the business so that we're not focusing on 7,000 different things. We're focusing strategically and systematically on the things that matter the most for the business based on our goals and our targets. And there's lots of little pieces that go into it. I'm going to cover some of these things at a high level so at least you guys understand it, right? Because I feel like there's some of you out there that truly just don't understand it. You've never been introduced to this concept. And honestly, I didn't know what it was either. I'm like, what management operating system? What does that mean? Right? I just knew the result of what I wanted and what I desired, which is to have a business where I got to choose where I was investing my time, right? So if I want to work on the business, I can work on the business. If I want to be doing the tasks, right? I still love doing assessments. That was one of my favorite things to do. I can still choose to do that, which I did for a long time until I didn't, right? But it is possible to build a business where it can run without you. And that was my vision. That was what I was holding on. It took me 7+ years to get to that place where that was even a possibility. Now, I don't want you guys to have to wait 7 years to get there. Some of you have been in business for 10 or 15+ years and you're not there yet. Some of you have been in business for a year or two and you might not be there yet. But having this management operating system in place, it changes the game. Right? And there's this level of pride that you get to experience when things are running smoothly. Your clients are happy, your caregivers are happy, your team, they're on board, and you feel that energetically, right? You feel that energetically inside of the business because you have more peace of mind. Like I used to go home to spend time with my kids, but my brain was constantly still on the business, right? Constantly still on the business. So yeah, I was there with my kids, but I really wasn't there. And that's not fair to them, right? And it's like I've been on both sides of it. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the different pieces. So this way you guys know. I wish I can do screen share on here on my phone. I'm going to try to do it. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me see if I can flip this. And I don't know. Do my best. Oh, you guys see reflections, but let's try it this way. It's hard to see. But essentially, when you have a management operating system, and I know there's a reflection, so it doesn't look very good, guys, and it's hard to read, and I apologize for that. Let me try it this way. All right. First thing is to really understand where you want to go, right? Where are your goals? Right? This is where I want to be, right? I want to be here. You have to have a clear vision. Unfortunately, for many of us, we operate in life where we kind of don't really have a destination, right? We and I'm going to flip back and forth a few times, but many times we don't have a destination of what it is that we want. I think it was Stephen Covey. Many of you guys have heard of Stephen Covey before, 7 Habits, but he talks about beginning with the end in mind. Right? Once you have clarity around where it is that you want to go, that's really the first step. It's like, this is my set point. This is where I want to be. So it starts with that. But then inside of that, once you know that, you've got to uncover your bottlenecks. Now, for many home care owners, right, for many of you guys watching this right now, and I see this a lot, right? We were talking about the recruiting example before where the owner knew recruiting was a problem, but they didn't have... it took forever for them to really address the root cause, right? So if you don't get to the root cause of what the problem is, recruiting's a big thing. It's not just one thing. Many of us think it's like, it's just recruiting. No, recruiting is broken down and chunked down into a multiple of things. And we have to get clear on where our issues are within that recruiting. But when you uncover your bottlenecks, right, and you do that by... And this is where it gets difficult for some of you. It's like, have you ever heard the saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? There's things right now, I don't know that I don't even know them, right? I don't even know all the solutions to my problems of this or that. Like, I just don't know all of the things that aren't in my awareness yet. But when you look at a home care business, I can promise you two of the key drivers in this business, you probably already know this, it is sales and recruiting. And consistently, when I'm working with people, it's like we have to make sure that our drivers are working well first. Like that's at the root of everything. It's like we have to get cases and convert them, and we have to. Oh, Mitch, well, Jaharis window. I don't know what that is, Mitch. Mitch, are you in town? Right. We have to make sure we're getting and converting leads, and we have to make sure we're getting and keeping caregivers. Right. We have to find and keep caregivers. Okay, that's at the core of a home care business. The end. Right. There's lots of other little pieces. But when you have your KPIs established and inside of each of those systems, sales, recruiting, and some of the other roles and functions, but when you have those things established, right, then you start to get a little bit more clarity on where the real root cause of the problem is. But it's not just that, right? It's not just, oh, I figured out that I don't have enough applications coming in, or that my caregiver show-up rate for interviews is low. Okay, those things matter. It's the system, right? The operating system in which you uncover those things. And you're like, well, Greg, what does that mean? I'm talking about like the process, the flow, the rhythm of your business, right? What does all of that look like? What are you looking at? What are you tracking? And then when you have that information, how do you uncover and solve the bottlenecks and all of those little pieces that flow together? It's not just like, oh, recruiting's a problem, my recruiter should fix it, or I saw this thing on a webinar and I'm going to implement it, and that's it. And you throw some stuff against the wall. Some of it does stick, right? You guys have all done it. You found a good idea, and then you implemented it, and you saw some results, and you saw some change, and that's great. That's great. That's wonderful. But the thing is that what does your process look like for making sure that these things are happening consistently, where you're uncovering the bottlenecks quickly in your team and everyone's problem solving and has it all working, in unison. Okay. So we've got uncovering the bottlenecks. And then from there, we want to learn how to automate and delegate, simplify our systems. I know some of this is like, oh, this seems like a lot, but it's not complicated when you have a process and a roadmap for being able to do that. Okay, what I mean by automation and delegation is that there's a lot of you, here that are still getting consumed by the business. And I get that. I know what that feels like. I do, right? I've lived that. Right. And even in my current business, I still live pieces of that now. So I have to go through these processes consistently to make sure that I've looked at how do I automate and delegate some of these things, right? How do I automate and delegate these things and hold people accountable? So this way it frees me up to work on growing the business, right? All of you guys talk about like, oh, I want to work on the business. I want to work on the business. Okay. Well, part of being able to work on the business is having a process, a management operating system for all of this. So this way, it does free you up so you can work on the business and continue to process improve. And sometimes that means finding the right people for the team. That's working on the business. And sometimes it means implementing a new strategy to get more leads. That's working on the business. Okay? So all of these things work in unison with each other. Same thing with like your organizational structure and your accountability chart. Like having that clear is what will start to help you be able to get to a place where you can elevate. Right now, all of this is fine and good. We like, this makes sense. But now it's like, okay, we've got to remove the bottlenecks. The next step and the next phase in this is really designing your compelling future. And they're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Exactly. Mitch is like working on the business instead of in the business. It's key, right? It's key. Mitch is in a place where he can do that, right? Mitch goes to I love Mitch. He goes to like Grateful Dead concerts all over the country because he's in a position where he's constantly working on the business. He's got the team. He's got the systems in place for being able to do that. The problem is a lot of people don't. Right? A lot of you watching this don't. And this, trust me, this is not judgment. I lived it, so I know what it feels like. But the one piece, the one thing that we're talking about is having this system in place so that we can work on the business and we can take time off. We can go to Grateful Dead concerts. We can do these things and we still have our finger on the pulse because we know what's happening. Right? One of those things, I'm going to try to share this with you guys to help you see it. All right. One of these pieces, and everyone's got their own version of this, or some people don't have it at all. And I know it's hard to see, but it's having your scorecard, right? It's knowing what are the key things that we are tracking, right? What are the key things that we're looking at inside the business? And then when we have benchmarks established, or we call them targets or benchmarks, when we have these things established, when things aren't functioning properly, right? This was my saving grace. If I didn't have this inside of my home care business, I would be a nervous wreck. I literally would be like a nervous wreck, like, oh my God, things are going to fall apart, right? Oh my gosh, things are not working well. Because you're not there, right? You don't know all the pieces or what's happening, and all you're doing is you're getting the calls to help have you as the owner put out the fires. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? So when you know the key things that you're supposed to be tracking, some people track too much, some people track too little, but there's things that we look at as business owners that help us have a gauge on the business. So this way, if I'm not there, but I still have the data that I need being tracked, I can look at that, I get my reports, I can see what's not working. And then when we talk about these inside of your week, right, there's a whole weekly meeting structure that kind of ties all these pieces together, right? Because a lot of people, and I did this early on, it's like my weekly meetings, they were sort of, I'm going to say, haphazard, to say the least, right? Because I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing. We'd talk about clients, we'd talk about issues, we'd talk about some problems, and then from there, it was like, okay, well, there's a good meeting. Let's do this again next week. And even at the beginning, my meetings were not consistent. We didn't do it all the time. I didn't have time for it, right? But what we don't realize is that if we don't make time for this and we don't have a good system and a good process for it, then that's how chaos ensues, right? And if you're wondering, like, trust me, I fought this tooth and nail for a long time, where it's like, I don't have time for these things. I got to go deal with this, and I got to deal with that, and I got to deal with that. But if you don't have this system operating inside of your business, then what happens is like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm not dealing with my biggest bottlenecks. I'm not dealing with my biggest challenges. I'm not being strategic, right? That's another piece of this, is like when you look at, and we're going to talk more about this in a bit, but right, when you do your quarterly reviews, which some of you are not doing, when you do your quarterly reviews and you're looking at all of this information and then you're developing new strategies for the next quarter, right? Instead of focusing on 30 different things and ideas that you got and just throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall, it's more systematic. Does that make sense? Right? It's more of a system and a process for staying laser focused on the key things based on the information that we've gathered. And now we know we got to focus on this, and we're going to drive more applications this quarter. We're going to improve our conversion rate, and we're going to implement a new business line, right? So I'm going to start to get into staffing. That's my new strategy for this next quarter. And then all of this sort of ties together, but it flows. That's what the message I'm trying to get across. It's like, it's got to flow. And the problem is when you don't have a management operating system, all you're doing is it's like throwing things in the dark. It's like playing darts blindfolded. You're just throwing things, right? Some of it sticks. Sometimes you get lucky and you can hit the bullseye with your eyes closed, right? But truth be told, that's more rare, right? This keeps you guys laser focused, and you now have a system for operating and for doing all this stuff. All right. So these are some important components. In addition to that, let me share my screen if I can. Hold on. That's end of year plan. That's that. That's not it. I'm just trying to pull up the other document that I've got for you guys. Okay, here it is. Let me know if you guys can see this. All right. So once you have some clarity around some of those things, the next piece is really having, it's sort of like your breakthrough outline. It's knowing, as an organization, what do we stand for? Who are we? What are our goals? What are our targets? Okay. Part of this is developed through your system, your management system. And what do I mean by that? It's how do you go through this process of determining, based on what my biggest needs are as a company, what are the strategic objectives for the company, right? So this outline, this breakthrough outline that you keep in front of you consistently, it's something, if you're doing it correctly, it's something that is shared with the team, right? And everyone on the team has projects or targets or goals or things that they're working on as a function of their role. So the recruiter has a project. Your scheduler, they have their project. All of it ties together. All of it aligns with our overall strategy. Does that make sense? Okay. Because when you have a system for managing and operating this, everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. And then as part of your weekly meeting structure, we're seeing who's on track and who's not on track with the strategy. And same thing, in our weekly meeting structure, we're looking week to week at our biggest bottlenecks, and we have a process for identifying clearly what is our problem. We're not just guessing. What is our big problem? And then based on that, how are we going to fix it, right? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. Okay, we're going to work on this just for this next week. I'm going to implement, all right, I'm going to go watch Greg's training on how to restructure my ad copy. Okay, we'll work on that. We'll put it out there. We'll get some results. And then we're going to come back again this next week and we're going to measure. And it's this consistent process and system for doing that until you get the results that you want. And then guess what? There's going to be a new problem and there's going to be a new issue and there's going to be a new challenge that's keeping you from the next level. But now at least you have a process for doing that, right? You have a process for keeping everything focused, aligned, on track. Okay? This is the one thing. This is the piece, right? This is the piece that changed everything for me. Like literally it changed it. Because before I was constantly having to just throw darts and spinning my wheels and trying to implement the 10, 15, 20 different ideas. Nope, we get scaled down and we get clear on what it is that we want. Does that make sense? You see, all this stuff is fine and good, but the problem is that for some of you, it's like, you're like, I don't have the time to work on this. Oh yeah, good question, Carol. So Carol's asking a question. She said, does the entire team work on solving the bottleneck in the weekly meetings? So the answer is, it depends. Usually, yes, that is the way it's done. You'll see that. So Carol was one of the action takers, by the way. I was surprised. Like, there was a bunch of people that they wanted information about this and then they did nothing. Carol was an action taker. A bunch of people took action, but I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, if everyone only knew how much this can change the game for them, everyone would be like, Greg, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. I should have done this. Like if everyone only knew. But Carol, the answer is yes. It depends. The reason why it depends is because it depends on the size of the organization. So in my company, I had 3 different departments. I had clinical, I had operations, and then I had sales. And then our weekly meetings were different. And then I had a leadership meeting, okay? Right? So it was different. It was different from the perspective of you, depending on the size of your company, you may only do one meeting and then everyone participates. But everyone in the meeting should be participating on solving the bottlenecks. So when you're in the membership site, Carol, and you watch the weekly meeting structure, there's a training inside of there for this. Go watch that particular video, and you'll see how it works generally speaking. And then you can hop on the Q&A calls if you've got like specific questions for your organization, right? So we'll be doing those weekly, and you just hop on there and you'll be like, all right, here's my company and here's what it looks like, and what would you do? Okay. So, but yeah, when we did the meetings, we throw the problems out there. We determine which ones are our biggest priorities. In fact, everyone gets to vote. That's the way the meeting structure is set up. Everyone gets to vote on the biggest issues, and then we problem solve. And then from that, we come up with to-dos, okay? We come up with to-do items. So when you do that, and then the next week, part of the meeting structure is you're saying, all right, did this get done? Did this get done? So I do talk about that inside of the training. And then, if things are, like I still have a question about my particular scenario, then you just hop on the Q&A. So larger companies are probably going to do multiple meetings. Okay. Smaller companies or mid-sized companies might do one meeting. Everyone participates. Everyone votes. But what you'll find out, Carol, is that inside of the meetings, as you're doing problem solving, you're going to have some people who have better ideas than others. You'll just see that happens. But the goal, and that's part of getting everyone to row the boat in the same direction. See, when you do it this way, everyone feels like they're part of the solution. Everyone feels like they're part of something bigger. Everyone feels like they're contributing in some way instead of it all being top down. Okay, now that doesn't mean we always implement everything that our team says, right? But everyone's participating. So you'll see what happens. It just starts to shift the dynamic of your company, and everyone starts to feel like, I'm part of something. Oh, I get to have ownership. Yeah. See, Mitch is one of the larger companies out there in our space, and he does 5 different meetings just for perspective, right? So I think we did 3 or 4 is the way we did it. Clinical, ops, sales, and then we had a leadership team meeting. But this will help you guys just get that flow going and really truly solve one of the biggest problems, which is like for many people, you wait 3 to 6 months to solve a real problem. Not intentionally. It's not like, I didn't mean to. It's just because you don't have the process and the system for it. You're just guessing. Like, I think this is it. This might be it. And there's just not really a flow to it. Now, once you have these things in place, Carol, you'll see how it starts to flow. And don't expect to get it right the first time. It just takes a little practice of implementation. Mitch will tell you. Mitch, when he was starting to learn different pieces, it took him, 6 months, a year. Some things you can learn right away. Boom. Other things just take a little bit of time to just keep fine-tuning. So this is just one piece of the puzzle, right? The other piece of the puzzle, and by the way, guys, you guys have access to this. For those of you that, like Carol, that signed up for the access to the membership site, you guys have access to this in there, okay? You guys all have access to this in there, but inside of there, I also have other pieces, because as you're going through this process, like this is the glue. What I'm talking about right here, this one thing, this really is the glue of all of it, right? It's the glue of all the pieces. It brings it all together. But as you're going through this and you realize, oh wait, I now have a recruiting problem. Well, inside of the membership site, you have access to all of the recruiting trainings that I've put out there, right? So if you're like, I need to fix my applications, well, there's 5, 10, 15 different solutions that you and your team can implement and start to put those things into place. So if you're like, I don't know okay, well, let's try this. Then let's try this. And let's try this. And then you just keep working. See, how it works is like, when you're trying to fix something inside of your business, sometimes you can throw something out there at it and it works. Other times it takes a little bit. You got to try this and then do this angle and then do this angle and then do this angle. And then you look back 4, 5, 6 months later and you start stacking solution on top of solution on top of solution. And that's when you start to see the major transition. Other times it happens super quick. right? It's just the reality of business. And then there are times where it's like you got something that's working and then all of a sudden it stops working. And we got to dissect and problem solve. So, D'Angelo, I'll have my team send you a link to it. So you guys, for those of you that are interested, you want to learn about this, we have a link for it. Just go to the link. It tells you the breakdown of everything. So, I mean, honestly, D'Angelo, I'll just say it's like there's people that are like, oh, really? Like, I wish they just had a clue of everything that they're getting access to. And I'm not just saying that. I'm like, pardon me. I'm like, I'm shocked. I'm like, whoa, whoa. Like, I know it sounds silly, but it's true. It's like there's so much in there that it will change your business drastically. Like, it'll change your business drastically. So anyway, these are the biggest pieces, right? The other part of it is like your strategic meeting, right? How do you get clear on the big pieces that we want to work on, right? How do we get clear on the big pieces that we want to work on? This one thing is the management operating system, but then there's a whole bunch of other things, right, that are part of this, because if you don't have your two drivers working effectively, like the sales and the recruiting part, the management operating system will help you identify that, but you still have to solve those problems. You still have to fix it, right? You still have to fix those problems. And for some of us, we just don't know what those solutions are. That's why it's all in there. So I'm like, it's a game changer for you guys. It really is. And I made it accessible to everyone. So I'll have my team get you the link, D'Angelo, if they haven't already. I feel like they probably did, but it's all in there. You can scan and look to see what's in there. So I'll hang tight for a few minutes to see if you guys have any other questions. Carol, I don't know if you've got any more questions. Ollie, great to see your beautiful face through Facebook. So let me know if you guys have any other questions about this. But truly, if you don't have a management operating system in your business, it will... Well, once you do implement it, you'll see at how chaos gets eliminated and how you can solve problems so much more quickly, and just have a process for being able to work on your big issues, remove bottlenecks, and then start scaling the company. So that's all I've got. I'll hang tight for a few more minutes. If anyone's got any other questions, let me know. If you want information on this, just comment in the chat box, say, get me details or get me info or whatever. But my team, I think they did message you, D'Angelo, just double check. But yeah, it'll have all the layout of everything for you guys. So, all right, guys. Yeah, you're welcome, Carol. Yeah, and just message us with questions or hop on the Q&A. But yeah, this is a game changer. Really is. Make the commitment to... See, my biggest fear, Carol, and I'm going to say this to you too, because I priced it so low, right? Because I priced it so low, I feel like some people just won't realize the value of what's in there. Thank you, Mitch. You guys all have access to this, by the way. But I do. I feel like you guys won't appreciate, or it's like, I've gotten stuff that I paid like very little for, and because I paid little for it, I didn't value it as much, right? And I'm like, oh, it was only $100 or it was only $300, and I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. So I didn't give it the attention, but I just paid $15,000 to participate in a mastermind group, and I'm treating it like it's, thanks, Mitch, right? And I'm treating it like it's gold, and it's helping me, and I'm getting better results because of it. So that was like one of my biggest fears of this. I'm like, gosh, I don't know. Some people are just not going to recognize that because it's priced like ridiculous. They're not going to put enough energy and attention to it. And I want you guys to treat it like you just invested $30,000. Okay, because the value and the result of what you can get is going to be worth that and then some. But if you think, oh, it's this much, so it must not be that good, you're sorely mistaken. And I'm not, maybe that sounds like ego. It's not ego. It's like, truly, this will help you guys tremendously. I tell you, I got this voice that said, share your knowledge, share your wisdom. I am sharing it. I'm making it accessible to everyone, but I can't make you take action. And that's the part. I want you to treat it like, oh my gosh, because when you do and when you implement, that's when you're going to get the results. If you don't implement, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to happen. All right. So that's all I've got. You guys are amazing. Yeah. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate your kind words. I know. I'm like, I just want to get this message out to everyone. Like, please know that I'm not just saying this. It's not like just a sales page. It's like, it will transform your business. It will transform your business. So, all right, guys, take advantage of it. Got to run. It's available for the next few days. Thanks, Mitch. It's available for the next couple of days. And let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll have my team message you if you do. And we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone. Bye.